say thank you for coming out today, out this morning. I'm sure you're going to appreciate it yourself here in just a few minutes. And Brother and Sister Mitchell are awesome people, two of my favorite people in the whole world. And some of you know why already. The rest of you will figure it out soon enough. Why don't we go to the Lord in prayer to begin with? Ask God's hand to be upon what we do today. And open our hearts and minds, because our homes, our lives ought to be founded upon the one that gave them to us, the Lord. And the natural mind, the Scripture says, cannot comprehend spiritual things. And being born-again believers, the majority of our life is, well, all of our life should be governed from the spiritual aspect. And we need God's hand upon us today. We need the mind of God to receive spiritual things, as well as the life application, especially us men who don't like to change a whole lot. We're going to need the hand of God and the mind of God. And so let's go to Him in prayer and ask Him to be with us. Father, thank you so much for your love and your mercy and your grace. Thank you for this institution of marriage, Lord, that you provided for us. Thank you, God, for your wisdom that you give in order to accomplish what you have set for us. We ask, Lord, that your mind would be in us today. Let the mind of Christ dwell in us. Let our hearts, O God, be open and receptive to your word. Let our spirits, I pray, God, be one with you. Unite us with you, O Lord. As the psalmist said, unite my heart, God. Help me to have a singleness of mind and focus today, and let your will be done. I pray for every one of these couples that are here. I pray that your hand of grace, strength, and wisdom be upon us. Let your will be done, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. We're already late, so I'm not taking much time at all here. I just want to say thank you. And these are Brother and Sister Mitchell. You will, if you don't know them, you'll grow to love them in about 30 seconds. They're awesome people, doing a great work for God in Columbus, Indiana. And I could sit here and talk for quite some time introducing them, but I'll just let them introduce themselves. I'm just going to turn it over to them, and we're going to have a good time today, all right? God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor. It's wonderful to be with you all today. And is this a recording mic now? Oh, wow. You're going to have somebody with a remote, because we don't know how to stand still. I noticed when everybody came in, I really thought the pastor must throw things when he teaches, because everybody started sitting in the back. I said, man, they're afraid of us or something. But we're just delighted to be here today, and we want to have a good time. We're going to laugh together. I hope you can laugh together. You got your laugh button on here today? You ready? Okay. And crying's okay too, but maybe not the same time you laugh. But we'll have a good time, and we want to talk about the real issues. Her and I are not really good at just lecturing, and we're not really good at that at all. We would like to communicate, but we really want you to be able to find yourself. And it's kind of important that we don't have answers. We find answers, each of us. And we're going to throw some ideas on the table, some thoughts that I think can be helpful and that have been proven to be good for marriage. But ultimately, everybody's going to have the honest heart and say, oh boy, that's me. Now, here's the rules. You got to understand this. If you hear us make a point that's your husband, you cannot point. There's no pointing. No. You know, we had a situation in Alabama years ago where the police chief came, and he wasn't a member of the church, and it was a pretty large city, so he's a pretty distinguished job. And she brought him right up to the front, and I was saying something about men, and we were laughing. And about personalities, and he was kind of that personality. He didn't talk a lot. And so when I'm talking, the two of them are kind of laughing, and he closes his eyes and bows his head chuckling as she reaches up in front of everybody and points. You can't point now, no pointing. And so, but here's the key: is y'all just want to laugh. It's easier. We can laugh about our stuff, or we can cry about our stuff. It's a choice. It really is. And I choose to laugh about it. So we're going to do that. My wife is going to start today with a really wonderful lesson, and the only way I could do this is her, and well, the only way she could do it is with me, I guess. You know, we'd be in trouble. I'm not much on going around the country by myself teaching marriage retreats and leaving my wife at home. It just didn't seem right to me. So thankfully, my wife has the same burden I do, and is a fantastic teacher, and she's a researcher, and she just finished a degree. She decided to go to school late and go back to school late, and just finished a degree at Indiana University in psychology. And at top of her class, she was 3.9 something, whatever it was. Head of the president of the psychology club, TA to 2 professors. They love her there. They were trying to get her to teach there, and she says, "Wow, I don't think that's what I want to do. We're a little busy for that." But she's a marvelous teacher and a great researcher, and a pretty good wife for 41 years. I mean, really, think about this. I mean, we've had a blast together. We still do. We still laugh. We still cry. We still flirt, and we still flirt, and we still flirt. And we still flirt. I hear this echo in the room. And every day we flirt, and you know, it's just an ongoing affair that we're having together with each other. And it's a lot of fun. Can I read you a little story, just a little wake up here? This is just kind of funny. You might have read this in the paper 100 years ago. I don't know. But this is a lady named Rebecca Dudley wrote this story in the paper. She says, "My ex-husband had this annoying habit." I mean, you talk about trouble in marriage, and we all have these, you know, stuff that, you ever have anything that your husband or wife does that just irritates you? Don't raise your hand, please, because all of us are going to raise our hand, okay? If you're married to someone that never irritates you, you have the deadest marriage in the world. You have no feelings. You're past feeling. My ex-husband had this, you notice, had this annoying habit of bringing greasy old carburetors and things into the house to work on. So last week when my friend called to tell me this story, my first response was, "Where did this guy live?" Now, reassured that I was never related to him by marriage, this really is too hilarious not to share. Now, the way my friend told it, she said, "This guy pushed his motorcycle from the patio into his living room, where he began to clean the engine with some rags and a bowl of gasoline. When he finished, he sat on the motorcycle and decided to start it to make sure that everything was okay. Unfortunately, the bike started in gear and crashed through the glass patio door with him clinging to the handlebars. His wife had been working in the kitchen. She came running at the noise and found him crumpled on the patio, badly cut from the shards of broken glass. She calls 911, and the paramedics transported the guy to the emergency room." Now, so far, that's funny and crazy. That's humorous. Who takes a motorcycle into the living room, and you're a big enough louse to bring your motorcycle into the house in the first place? She says, "But here is where I really split a gut. Later that afternoon, after many stitches had pulled her husband back together, the wife brought him home and put him to bed. She cleaned up the mess in the living room and dumped the bowl of gasoline into the toilet. Well, shortly thereafter, her husband woke up, lit a cigarette, and went into the bathroom." This is a true story. He sat down and tossed the cigarette into the toilet, which promptly exploded because the wife had not flushed the gasoline away. The explosion blew the man through the bathroom door. The wife heard the explosion and her husband's screams. She ran into the hall and found him lying on the floor with his trousers blown away and burns on his buttocks. The wife ran to the phone and called for another ambulance. The same 2 paramedics were dispatched to the scene. They loaded the husband on the stretcher and began carrying him to the street. One of them asked the wife, "How did this injury occur?" When she told them, they began laughing so hard They dropped the stretcher and broke the guy's collarbone. That's a bad day. Well, maybe your problems this morning getting here on time wasn't quite that bad. But anyhow, we all have stuff. It just is what it is. The key is that we keep working on our stuff, and that pride and does not replace humility, and that we still keep working together, because no matter how old you are, if you think that all your problems is your first couple years, you haven't been married very long. Because every marriage you have cycles, and you go through cycles of life, and things started changing, including your body, including your mind, including your eyesight. They said they sat back there, and because, maybe I couldn't see him. I said, well, I just turned 60. It may be true I can't see back there anymore. But it is what it is. It's life. So you just got to learn to adjust with every cycle of life, and it's very important. And I'm very glad you came, and I'm just happy. Would you give each other a high five and say, man, it's awesome that you came with me today. Okay, this is a marriage retreat, so we should start off being married. Stand up and give your spouse a big hug. First one all year.
We are privileged, delighted to be here. The Lashleys and us go way back. For my husband's family, probably 50 years. For me, 41 and a half years. So we love your pastor and your precious pastor's wife, and we love you all because you are committed to serving God together with him. And that's how the body works. When your pastor was praying today, and he prayed the prayer from Psalms, unite me. And we hope at the end of today's sessions that you will have some tools that will help that uniting in here and uniting here, which eventually, grab his arm again, this is what happens. Because it starts with each one of us, then next is to our spouse, and then to our family. And the family is the building block of the church. Right. So you have a strong relationship with God. You build a strong relationship with your spouse, which creates a strong family. How strong a wall can you build? As strong as each individual block is. And so I urge you today, you're going to hear some things that are funny. You're probably going to find some things in here that are uncomfortable. Dan and I are not, believe it or not, I'm 62, he's 60. Yes, I robbed the cradle.
Stole my passing too.
And we're still working on marriage. We will be working on marriage when the trumpet sounds. I'm still working on being a Christian. So why should it shock me that I still need to work on this relationship when I'm working every day on this relationship? So in our first lesson, we want to talk about conflict conversion, part 1. Changing the way you argue. It's the first lesson right inside. Early in your marriage, you may have thought that unlike the relationships of those around you, you and your beloved would travel the journey of marriage with blissful harmony, and that serious disagreement was something that would only happen to other people. Or you and your sweetheart may have taken the plunge of marriage despite, I actually knew a couple, that they fought like cats and dogs in their courtship. I mean, we just expect that something's going to happen the week of the wedding. And you know what? They got married. They've been married like 43, 44 years now. And because they have chosen to work on their conflicts, they have a wonderful, strong marriage and a wonderfully strong family. So it doesn't matter if you started in the Pollyanna, oh, everything is wonderful, or da-da-da-da. As you work on how you engage in conflict, because if you haven't had conflict today, don't hold your breath. You probably will before the next week is out. It is just a matter of life. One of the reasons for conflict, let's just talk quickly about this. One of them is different personality types. How many of you would say you are an extrovert, that you're energized by being around people and fun groups? Okay, we have a few more, okay. How many of you are energized by challenge and risk? Okay, a few, okay. It's very likely that all those in each of those groups married someone who is somewhat more introverted than the extrovert. And you probably married someone who is not as interested or enjoys challenge and risk. You married someone who's safe. So do you see here now how the extroversion and the introversion is going to cause conflict? Yes. You understand how those of us, I love risk and I love challenge. I want to ride a zip line. I want to go parasailing. And my husband is very, very, very safe. He thinks way, way down the road. I don't. I think now. Oh, yeah. Now, can you see how those differences set us up for potential conflict? It's not that he's right and I'm wrong, or that I'm right and he's wrong. It's not that. It's differences. So understand, the fact that you have conflict is not a negative reflection on either one of you. It's the fact that we tend to be attracted to those who are good at what we're not good. My husband has perfect pitch. If you hit a key on the keyboard today, he can tell you what it is. I have trouble hearing. In fact, I have some hearing loss. I'm a knowledge person. Dan is a wisdom person. I wish I was a wisdom person.
And I wish I was a knowledge.
But together, we make a great team.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I lean on his wisdom, and he leans on my knowledge. So, the things that attract us to each other in courtship, now we get married. And we go, where before you had one, maybe two contacts, now that you're in a marriage, you join your finances, you sleep in the same bed, we hope. You have children, you eat together. So you have so many potential so many potential situations for conflict, because you now are connected in so many more intimate, not just sexual, but just schedule, calendar. We need to have a birthday. Today is our younger son's 32nd birthday, and here we are. Now we will have to somehow figure out how to get a birthday party in there. And he may have these are his words. If it gets bigger than 6, he gets really uncomfortable. My idea of a party, let's have a block party. We don't need another, hand out name tags. We can meet new people. So you see how those differences set us up to potentially have conflicts. Now, it's not that I'm right or wrong, or him. It's that we're different. And we, like I said, we tend to be attracted to people that are different than us. So, we are going to have, we're going to have conflict. Let's just say it. We're going to have conflict. That's right. But I promise to fight fair. Say that? I promise to fight fair. About halfway down through page 2. Let's get honest. Our spouse is going to do things that annoy us. While we may be uncertain on how to voice a complaint, and that's what we're going to teach you in this lesson, how to voice your complaint. We are fooling ourselves if we think that the conflicts or disagreements can be allowed to accumulate without damaging the marital relationships. These conflicts or fights need to be addressed. And Dr. Christine Carter of the University of California at Berkeley writes, how we fight and how we resolve our conflicts can have a huge influence on our children's health and happiness. How many of you have children or hope to have children? What do you want their marriage to be like?
Right.
Somebody at this back table, what do you want your kids' marriage to be like? Okay, somebody at this table, what do you want your kids' marriage to be like?
Happy.
Strong, peaceful, happy, nurturing. Understand how you handle conflict has a lot to do with the kind of marriage your children will have. And here's why. You are the model. Now you can either be the positive model that they want to be like, or you can be the model that they don't want to be anything like. The problem is when we raise our children with a model that they reject, then they are open to whatever is there. They don't know what to be, they just know what not to be. So it's very, very important when you have a conflict with your spouse that you understand, I am not just shaping my marriage. I am shaping the marriage of my children. I am shaping the marriage of my grandchildren. Because kids get it. They may not hear you say the words, but they get it. They know what's going on. A substantial body of research shows that conflict between parents, whether they are married or not, puts kids at increased risk for all sorts of problems. Depression, anxiety, disobedience. We all want obedient children. Aggression, delinquency, poor self-esteem, antisocial behaviors, trouble sleeping, academic underachievement, low social competence. They have problems maintaining and making friends. Even health problems. Suffice it to say that fighting with your co-parent is not a happiness habit for your children. In fact, rather than damaging the marriage of our children, or by choosing to manage a conflict well, we strengthen. You may say we don't want the kids to know we disagree. They know you disagree. They know that. Pass the peas. That's communication.
Yeah.
What peas? Or we actually knew a couple, they wouldn't talk to each other. Johnny, pass your father the peas. That really works.
Yeah.
So, how do we fight? And obviously I'm using that, I'm not talking about fight. There is no place for that. None. It's wrong and it's illegal and it should be. I'm talking about how you deal with conflict. Do we do it with criticism or complaint? Oh, I meant to tell you. This is not my latest attempt at body art. I had some tests done. They did it in both arms. This one went well. This one didn't turn out so good. I tried to wear an outfit that goes with purple. It's navy and white. No. Conflict management in marriage often falls into one of two modes. Criticism, a negative assessment that tends to be global or generalized, and we'll explain what that means. And it often includes exaggerations and are directed at the person. So when I criticize in the conflict, I'm directing my issue at the person. Okay? A complaint, on the other hand, is specifically directed at an event or a behavior. Gottman, most of this material is from Dr. John Gottman. He is currently considered the marital relationship expert. About 40 years ago, he started what's called the Love Lab at the University of Washington, and he has amazing research available. Dan and I were privileged to attend a seminar by he and his wife in Chicago this last September. And so when we're talking about this guy started at MIT in doing his undergrad as a math major. He loved math, and it was very, very boring. And his roommate was a psychology major, and he said, I would thumb through my roommate's textbooks and think, man, that's so good. So about his third year, he switched from math to psychology. But guess what? He's probably, 73, 74? Everything he does is still supported by math. So what we're sharing with you today is not, well, we think this works or it feels right, so we say, no. This man is a profound analysis researcher. If you ask him, why do you say criticism? He'll say, well, back in 2013, we did this many couples and we found this. Great stuff. He has several good books. Just say John Gottman, a lot of excellent material for him. But that's where this comes from. Gottman makes this distinction. There is a world of difference between a complaint and a criticism. A complaint only addresses the specific action at which your spouse failed. A criticism adds on some negative words about your mate's character or personality. Here are some criticisms, and these are from Gottman and his wife. Number one. Thank you. I forgot to advance you. Okay. Number one, criticism. Why can't you ever remember anything? I told you 1,000 times to fill up the tank, and you didn't. That's a criticism. Here's a complaint. There is no gas in the car. Why didn't you fill it up like you said you would? You see the difference? Okay. Criticism, set number two. Criticism, why are you always so selfish? It was really nasty of you to lead me on. You should have told me earlier that you were too tired to make love. Or the complaint. You should have told me earlier that you're too tired to make love. I am really disappointed and I feel embarrassed. By the way, understand that no matter how long you've been married, we can still misread each other. And we will be talking a little bit about this in the split session. But making love is important whether you've been married a week or 60 years. It still matters. Because sexual fulfillment is the oil that alleviates the friction of two people living together that closely. As you get older, you may have to become creative. Get creative. Don't get stuck in a rut and say, well, if we can't do just the missionary position, we won't do it at all. No. This is your other half. Break out something different. Set 3, criticism.
Now you know why I love them.
Criticism. Why do you keep putting your friends ahead of me? I always come last on your list. We were supposed to have dinner alone tonight. Complaint. Okay, criticism. Zing, zing, zing. Complaint. You were supposed to check with me before inviting anyone over for dinner. I wanted to spend time with you. Now let's analyze these. Set 1. The criticism in set 1 opens with an immediate attack on the ability of the spouse that did not put gas in the car. Why can't you ever remember anything? Okay, this is global. Global means that it's ever, always, every time, anytime. It takes it from the specific to, you know what, none of us are global. Sometimes we really do remember to put gas in the car. Not very often. But that's what global is. Global is a generalization that says every time or you always. And it's just not accurate. So take the always out of your complaints. It implies that the partner always forgets everything. Furthermore, this criticism contains 2 exaggerations. Can't ever remember anything. I've told you 1,000 times. Really? 1,000 times? And I'm assuming that you have records of the 1,000 times of instruction that was given to fill up the tank, right? I want to see the bookkeeping here. 1,000 times? No, it's an exaggeration. But the person who is angry or offended, who is making the criticism, they want to make sure they have all the big guns they need, because they want to go in with the Powell doctrine, overwhelming strength. Oh, nobody's here to fight me now. Why? But they're laying back there dead in the road because I just ran over them with my tank. No. It's not who wins the argument.
Come on.
Right.
Right.
It's not who gets, ching, check one in my column. How many of you are aware there's a big fight tonight? You heard about this?
Yeah.
Mayweather and...
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, somebody's going to be the winner and somebody's going to be the loser. But you don't want to manage your marital conflict like that. It's not about who's going to be the winner or who's going to be the loser. Because if that's your mindset, the marriage is the loser. Your children are the loser.
Right.
Your children's marriage is the loser, which means your grandchildren are the loser. Rather, it's how can we address this conflict so that our marriage is strengthened, and it can happen.
Right.
Addressing conflict can strengthen your marriage, and we will talk about that. Set number 2. This criticism is a response to one spouse misreading the other's cues about lovemaking and begins with an exaggeration and an attack. Boy, now this is really a great way to get some, I'll tell you. Yeah. Why are you always so selfish? Oh, honey, I just love you so much. Let me scoot over to your side. That's not going to work. Whoever's making this charge is really dumb.
Yeah.
Really dumb. Really dumb. Guess why your partner, wife, husband, is so tired? Because you don't make it beneficial for them to not be tired. So by attacking your spouse's character, you may win the argument. But it may be a really cold winter. So when you address conflicts, I'm embarrassed. Maybe whoever wrote this is from Gottman's couples work, whoever did this and shared this, they did something that was obviously overtly sexual. You're all married here, I'll let you visualize that. And the other partner said, I'm just too tired. And sometimes we are just too tired. And this partner feels embarrassed. Now, you're not performing at Carnegie Hall, I hope. If you are, that's called pornography. We don't do that, but in case you didn't get the memo, we don't do that. You're in a bedroom or camping, or it's just the two of you. Address this with the person who is the closest to you. The person with whom you are trying to build a stronger marriage. Number 3. This criticism immediately launches a global indictment. Remember those globals, always, all. Why do you keep putting your friends ahead of me? The implication here is that the transgressing spouse has his or her priorities out of line and is continually putting others before the offended spouse. Back up. Sorry. We have an incomplete set here, even after I... This criticism launches a global indictment. Global indictments are always dishonest. Yes. Because they are not accurate. The problem is, if you're like me, when that comes at you, my adrenaline pump turns on and I go, Let's just share a little neuroanatomy. Put your hand right here. Right behind your forehead, you have what's called your prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal lobe, right here. Okay, put down. It's very thin, and the cortex goes over your whole brain. It's what you see if you see a picture of the brain. This is where you develop executive thought, wisdom, the return of a good argument. When your adrenaline turns on, your brain, your body, takes blood from the prefrontal cortex and sends it right back here. Now this is where your reflexes are processed. And when you send blood to this, you can block a shot, you can run, you can scream, you can yell. Your heart, your lungs, your legs are empowered. But your executive power is decreased. So when I'm charged with it, I go, This is relatively slow because it's very complex. This is very fast because it's very simple. So what happens is we can't think of anything, so we just spew out something we've used before or we've heard somebody else use. Well, now did that help the conflict? No. So when you are in conflict with your spouse, eliminate global. Always, never, anytime, forever. Take it out of your language. And say to yourself, if you're a person that tends to use globalization or global generalizations, say, I've got to become honest. Because you're being dishonest in the charge, and you're short-circuiting your spouse's ability to engage in solving the problem. Do you want the problem solved?
Right.
Or do you just want to win the fight?
Good question. Good question.
In each of these situations, the criticism escalated the problem, while the complaint addressed and helped to solve the conflict. Let's look at the contrast between criticism and complaint. Do I have this up? I don't have a slide that says that. Shows this chart.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, that's my fault. No, it's actually, I have a very carnal computer. No. And between Columbus and Peoria, it ate the slide. No, it was my fault. Criticism, but you have it in your handbook. Let's look at a contrast between criticism. Can you hold up your left hand and say criticism? Criticism. And now hold up your right hand and say complaint. Complaint. Now do them together. Criticism. Criticism. Complaint. Complaint. Okay, now I'm going to explain what these are, and when I'm talking about a criticism, I want you to raise your left hand, and then when I shift to the complaint side of the column, I want you to raise your right hand. Just you don't have to keep them up there, but just, I want you to acknowledge. Okay, criticism, attacks spouse. Complaint, addresses conflict. Exaggeration, likely, criticism. Complaint, they are accurate. Criticisms are global. Now, I want to make sure that I've explained what global means. Could somebody raise their hand very quickly? I'm sure it'll be an extrovert, noisy like me, and explain back to me what global means, because I want you to understand what I'm saying when I say global. Somebody? Yes.
Global is just generalization. It's everything, everybody, kind of extremes, indefinites.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Just give him a hand. Complaint, let me see your right hand, are specific. They are specific. Criticism is often sarcastic. I have to work on being sarcastic. When we were at the Gottman seminar last September, one of the things that Dr. John Gottman come down so strongly against is sarcasm. It's called the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. He said the number 4 things that will mark the destruction of a marriage. The third one in that was sarcasm. So if you're like me and you tend to be you love sarcasm, repent of it. Why? Because it is undermining your relationship with your husband. It's probably not only undermining your relationship with your husband or wife, it's undermining your relationships, period. Yes, I know. I was talking to someone this week who we were talking about sarcasm. And I said, and I don't play tennis, but I said, it feels like you're on the tennis court and you hit it, a serve, and it just hits in the corner and it bounces out and they can't do a thing. He said, boy, it's true. But I said, I am learning how destructive it is. So criticism, let me see your left hand, is sarcastic. A complaint, let me see your right hand, is, let's read this word together. Sarcastic, considerate. Triggers defensiveness. Nurtures trust. Which one do you want to do in your marriage? Seeks vindication. I want to win. Seeks resolution. Escalates conflict. Resolves conflict. Weakens the marriage, or what does this last one say?
Strengthens the marriage.
So, attacks spouse versus addresses conflict. When our conflict progresses from complaint to spouse, we may fall into the trap of attacking those areas in which our spouse is most vulnerable in order to win the fight. If you have been married any length of time, you know where his or her buttons are. You know that in Churchill's language, he called it the soft underbelly, and he had a very big soft underbelly. But we know where those are. And when we're put into a position of defensiveness, we don't stick to the conflict. You didn't fill the car up with gas, and we've got to leave this morning to drive to Peoria. But rather you go, does it settle the conflict about the gas in the car? No. What does it do to the marriage? It weakens the marriage. Exaggeration versus accurate. In order to strengthen our position in this conflict, we may use exaggeration. I have told you 1,000 times to increase the appearance of one who is right. I want to pause just a second here. Those of us who are apostolic, we're spirit-filled, we want to live separate lives, we are very susceptible to self-righteousness. Unfortunately, self-righteousness can affect a lot more than just your marriage, than just your relationship with other people. It comes into your marriage, and you're looking for ways to be the superior spouse. So understand, when you hear yourself saying 1,000 times, or I've told you 300 times, or whatever, say, God, am I self-righteous? Do I try to elevate myself to be all that so that I can see myself as superior? Search your heart. Please, please, please. Global versus specific. We know what that is. As John said, everything versus just the facts, please. Sarcastic versus considerate. We're going to go on. Triggers defensiveness. I want to spend a little time on this. Versus nurtures trust. With its focus on attacking the character of our mate, using exaggerations and hurtful charges, criticism often triggers our spouse to resort to defensiveness in order to protect what they see as their position. Unfortunately, Defensiveness is really a way of blaming your partner with the message, I'm right and you're wrong. When our criticism triggers our spouse to react this way, we can be quite certain that the conflict will not be settled easily and may, in fact, result in trench warfare. You have a little picture here. Yeah, I don't know where it is. The computer ate it. No, I don't know. And I will tell you, up until about 3, not very long ago, years ago, I was very prone to be defensive. When Dan would try to bring, and this, 41 years, he has never raised his voice at me. Never. Never.
Really?
And so it wasn't the way he would approach a conflict. Actually, even before we knew this material, he did it right. He's a wise person. But I saw it as an attack, and I raised my defensiveness. Unfortunately, when one of us goes into a defensive mode, we can't address the conflict because I see it not about the conflict, but about my being less than perfect. I will confess to you, I struggle with self-righteousness. I repent of it I'd like to say I repent of it every day, but that would be a lie. But I struggle with self-righteousness. And when he brings something to me that is a conflict, that implies that I am less than perfect. Well, how could you say that to me? So what happens is he wants this conflict settled. I feel I'm being wrongly attacked, and we both dig in. And the conflict does not get addressed. Unfortunately, not only does the conflict not get addressed, but the problem with Sammy not doing his homework doesn't get addressed. The problem with, we didn't pay our tithes last week doesn't get addressed. You see? So understand when one spouse, perhaps like me, takes up the position of defensiveness, that you are setting yourself up for the problem to not go away. The reason problems are problems because they are that interaction between two people. And what you want to do is you want to take that interaction and you want to align it so you truly become one. Can you do that with me? Do it with your fingers. Okay? This is when you're in conflict, okay? Hard to get them together. But now slide them like this. That's the way you want your marriage to be. You want it to, look how strong that is. It'd be really, really hard to pull that apart. How hard would it be to pull this apart? No. When you develop this kind of marriage, storms are going to come. And if you didn't know it yet, let me tell you, storms are going to come. Sure. We've survived cancer. But because we've worked hard on building this kind of relationship, the hard things haven't pulled us apart. At least I don't think so. No, that was supposed to be funny. Ha, 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 ha. 6 vindication. I was going to say I don't think divorce papers are coming, but 6 vindication versus seeking resolution. Another opportunity for personal revelation, one of those aha moments, is when we honestly ask, and I want us all to say this out loud. Page 8, about halfway, it's by the aha. Okay, do you see that sentence under slide 11? Okay, can we read that together? Okay. What do I really want out of this argument? Let's say that again. Okay.
What do I really want out of this argument?
Are we seeking vindication? That is, are we trying to be proven right, or are we pursuing resolution of the problem? Do we want to stand at the end of the conflict with our fist raised in victory in the air and we can chalk up another win for Joanne? Or is your goal to restore peace to the marriage? About 15 years ago, we developed a lesson entitled Prerequisites of Successful Families, in which Dan repeatedly made this statement: being right is not important to a strong family member. And if, as I do, you struggle with self-righteousness, this understanding may be very difficult to process, because self-righteousness drives those of us with this weakness to insist on our rightness at the cost of all else. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're right. Well, if you're right, you can't be wrong. So, when you have a conflict, ask yourself, what am I really trying to achieve here? Am I trying to address the conflict, to settle the conflict, or do I want to be proven, yeah, I really am that a bag of chips? Big, big deal. And lastly, escalates conflict and weakens marriage versus resolves conflicts and strengthens marriage. If you and your spouse have been using the illegal weapons associated with criticism, you have been weakening and undermining your marriage. On the other hand, if you choose to use carefully developed complaints to address your conflicts between you and your husband or wife, the conflicts can be resolved and the marriage can actually be strengthened. Here's an example of a marital conflict that Dan and I experienced. August 2014. We were on our way to a meeting. It was early Friday morning, and the week had been long and intense for both of us. This is true. We had had 3 funerals, 1 wedding, and a special service all in 5 days. We were tired. And this was Friday. We're heading into another weekend. On the way to the appointment, I mentioned that I hoped we could look for some office furniture after we completed our appointment so I could begin the challenging process of reassembling our home office after our recent move from our home. We sold our house. Dan replied, "Oh, have you found the title for the ATV?" He had asked me to find it 2 weeks earlier. "It shouldn't be hard. I think it's in that corner box." I snapped back, "Yes, I'm sure I will find it as I sort through the records as I put the office together." Dan responded, "Well, we need to find it." As I rolled down State Road 46 toward Columbus, I said, "I am sorry I snapped at you. I just felt like you just rolled over what I said." Later that day, after our appointment, we stopped by Office Max and got the needed table and file drawers. That night, as I was reading this material in Chapter 2 of Gottman's book, I realized that Dan and I had engaged in a healthy conflict that had effectively diffused 2 complaints: the necessity to buy some office furniture so our home office could be set up, and the need to find the ATV for the title we had sold 3 weeks before. Now, let's consider how this could have gone if we would have, instead of saying a complaint, chosen criticism. On Friday morning, Dan and I were long intense week. I might have charged, "I am so tired of having our records in such chaos. Can you please spare some of your precious time?" Sarcasm. Would you all read the words in parentheses after my little? Okay, so precious time.
Sarcasm.
To go with me after our appointment to buy some furniture. Dan could have responded, "Have you found the title for the ATV we sold? I asked you a dozen times
Exaggeration.
to find it. In fact, I think it's in that box in the corner. That upstairs room looks like a tornado hit."
Maybe an exaggeration, but it wasn't that.
It was. "You always
Generalization.
get distracted
Attacking my character.
when it comes to keeping our records organized." I might have shot back, "Well, since you already know where the title is, for once,
Exaggeration and sarcasm.
why don't you find it yourself? I've asked you 100 times
Exaggeration.
when we could get some office furniture to set that room up." And Dan could have fired back, "What I think is always
Exaggeration.
goes to the bottom of your to-do list. I am so embarrassed that we haven't gotten their title." To which I could have quipped, "Just when do you think I could have done that? We had 3 funerals, a wedding within 5 days." Well, that part's true. On top of that, we have been working on overdrive to complete handouts for a revised marriage. Well, we look like, if we'd had this, like we could have been good at pre-marriage courses, right? So rather than dealing with the pending conflicts, we need to buy office furniture and find the ATV title, the criticism could have converted our conflict into a relationship-damaging relation. Now, I hope when we have a little break here that you think back of a recent and think, so did I approach this disagreement as a conflict? Or did I handle it as a complaint? I urge you, convert your conflicts from criticisms that undermine your marriage and increase marital tension, to complaints that resolve disagreements, decrease tension, and actually strengthen your marriage. And can we read these 4 points together on page 11? Focus on the conflict. Be accurate and specific. Be considerate. Focus on resolution. Let's read that last one again. Focus on
Resolution, not vindication.
when you play fair. Can you cross out play, and if you have a pen, and write fight? When you fight fair, even if your spouse does not, and you choose to refocus on the future, remind yourself that marriage is forever, and that by doing the hard, painful work of redesigning conflict management, you are ensuring that your marriage will become stronger. My husband, we've been married 41 years. Dan has changed so many aspects of me. He is unselfish. I tend to be selfish. He is wise. I do not tend to be wise. He is measured and careful. I am not. How has he changed me? It's amazing when I look at how I live my life now. I am so like Dan Mitchell. It's just like, yeah. How? He hasn't done it because he got the Bible and, thus saith the word of the Lord.
Yeah.
You know what he did? Even when I got it wrong, over and over, he just kept doing it the right way. Why? Because he was much more concerned about next month, next year, 5 years, than he was today. After 41 years, it has worked. Thank God. I should say it's still working because I'm still working on it. Thank you so much. God bless you. Let's say the name of this lesson: conflict, conversion. I'm going to change how I fight.
I'm going to change how I fight.
Thank you.
Yeah. We really should title that How to Fight Fair, I think.
Yeah, we should.
But any questions? And we're going to do this in sessions, and we're totally open, and we're very open. If we can't answer them, to tell you, I don't know. So it's okay. Question? Yes.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell, you mentioned on page 5 that the third horseman of a destructive marriage was being sarcastic.
Uh-huh.
Are you going to hit, or did you tell us what the other 3 were?
We are not going to address that, but if you will enter 4 horsemen, Gottman, Gottman, it will give you how to get that material, how to get the book. Do I cite the book at the bottom of the page?
That will get it, though.
Okay, but that will get you the information. Eye-opening. Eye-opening.
That's a whole lesson in itself. It's a very good lesson.
Big lesson, yeah.
That's important. And sarcasm, it just, we have so many things. It's like playground stuff. And then we bring it into marriages, and then, oh my goodness. There's so much that happens, confusion in marriage, that really has nothing to do with the problem. I mean, how often have you been in an argument, and you argued so long that an hour later you don't remember what started the argument? And then you go, why are we still fussing? We don't even know what started this fuss. Because it goes into global generalizations. And it's crazy. And then, you know, there's always one person that's a better arguer. There's one, you're a better debater. It's not fair. But there'll be one of you that's a better debater than the other. And if you're a better debater, you just think, I got the upper hand, because you're just wanting to win a debate.
Right.
If you're not as good a debater, you don't know what to do, but you sure know how to pick up sticks and throw stones. And so you've always loved her more than me. You should have just married Sally, you know. You've always said this and bad blood, and it just always, and all this nonsense. So we start throwing stuff in. And I mean, if your house is on fire, you go get water. You don't go to the shed and get a gallon of gasoline.
Absolutely.
And in our marriage, we go grab gasoline and just throw anything liquid on it. Why? We want to win the fight here. And being right just can't be important. If being right is really important, then Sundays, you need to go find the altar every single Sunday and say, Lord, wash me of pride today. Because if it's really important and I win this argument, then you're too prideful. I teach a lot in other areas, leadership, ministry and stuff, on living in the big picture, on thinking in the big picture, and planning in the big picture. What would happen if we would live in our marriage in the big picture? Right. If we would consider, I'm about to say something, and it's going to throw a hand grenade, and it's going to be quite a fireworks display, but today's not the 4th of July, so it's really not good. And if we would just think, I can't do this. Now, I know in pastoring, and if you pastor more than 60 minutes, You know, there are times, this last couple of years, I asked God a couple of times, could I just not do the right thing one time? Would you please let me say the wrong? I just want to say what I want to say right now. God, please. I did. I begged him. I says, I just want one time. I want to feel good. I want to look somebody in the eye and say, you idiot, you're lying. You know, you know. Now, it might have, drove some people to hell, but I just wanted to, And he just smiled at me like, you're not going to do that. And I says, okay, God, I won't do that. And in marriage, it's that way too. Another question, good question. That's very important research. Maybe we'll do that whole. In fact, I know we'll do that, the Four Horsemen someday, but it's important. Any other questions? Some other questions? Somebody? Yes.
Can you, does the way you talk sometimes with other conversations that you find, that's how you argue? So if you find yourself talking bad about others, would that be like a sign that, hey, maybe I am a person that attacks?
Well, certainly, she talked about self-righteousness, and that doesn't necessarily mean self-righteousness, but she talked about the fact that if you are self-righteous out here, it comes into marriage, you will be in here, and it becomes all about, me. We get defensive because, I don't want to be the wrong one.
Right.
Why? Why don't we want to be the wrong one? I mean, here's the thing. If you've been married more than 60 minutes, you will know that you're going to be wrong. And after 41 years, it's like, well, just add it to my bill. I mean, instead of looking at it like, no, not me, it's like, yeah, there I go again. Instead of there you go again, it's there I go again. Now, here's the deal about life, is it has a way of coming around.
Right.
If you're really right.
Yep.
He says, you shouldn't have bought that motorcycle. And you go, well, I needed that motorcycle and we can afford it. No, we cannot. Guess what? In 90 days, it's going to be proven whether you could afford it or you couldn't afford it. And you're not going to have to say, I told you so, because he's going to be sitting there in a bucket of tears going, I think I need to put a sale sign on the motorcycle. Now, you could just do all the, you fussed at me because I wanted to buy the dress and you got to buy the motorcycle and you can do all this. Later, if you're right, it will show. Right shows up. But if you insist on being right now, then you're really wrong. You're not living in the big picture. I think of Moses. Moses didn't go into the promised land. Why? He got mad.
Yeah.
Now, he was right to be mad.
Right.
The Bible says be angry, but sin not.
Yeah.
He come off the mountain and he'd had enough. I mean, and as a pastor, I know murmuring and complaining, it had to drive you out of your gourd. The Bible says you should, respect and love and obey your pastor so that he could pastor with joy.
Yeah.
And that's your goal. Your goal in life is I want my pastor to always have a smile on his face.
Right.
How do I do that? You be obedient and you be respectful and be kind. But in Moses comes down and he was so wroth, he took the commandments and slammed them on the ground. And the Lord says, all right, I'm going to help you with these people, but you're not going over. You're going to stay over here. And I always think of that. I think, man, here I could have this great marriage except for, I want to win this argument. So if you want to win a debate, just go to law school, be a lawyer, keep it in the courtroom. But do not bring it into the home. So it could be absolutely, it very well, if we behave like this out here, it's obvious we might bring that into the home. And we got to be careful. And some of us more than otherwise. I love to debate. I'll just tell you that. I love debate. Now, I don't a lot, but there's a lot of debates I'd love to get into because I know I'd win. But I also know that I don't lose very well. And so, it's like, don't get in a fight with me because I don't want to kill you. I want to hurt you. If I'm going to be stupid enough to fight, there's no rules. There's no honor. There's nothing. You're going to get hurt. And when I get you there, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to torture you because I'm not a killer. I'm the guy that hangs you up on a nail and say, you'll never do that again, okay? Sounds terrible. Now you don't want to hear what I have to say, do you? This guy has a secret life. He's torturing people. No. Anyhow, another question. Good. Anything. Now, maybe some of you want to write down while we're talking, like in the breakout session. So you might want to get a scrap piece of paper or something or cut some pieces up. But don't put your name on it and don't say my spouse's name is this. But if you have a question about relationship, it doesn't even have to be something we're talking about. If it has to do with a relationship, bring it up, make sure we have it, and it's okay. We'll be glad to if we can, we'll deal with it either after the session or at the end. When we get finished here today, maybe at the end we can have some Q&A. And so if it's the kind of things you don't want to ask publicly because it's kind of indicting or whatever, then write a note and get it to us, and we'll do our best to work on that later. Is that okay? Is that good? Think about that, because I'm telling you, Q&A can be some of the best times of all. I could teach 3 hours on Q&A alone. You just throw questions, and because it just opens up the things that you really want to talk about. And that's really good. Are you still in love with your spouse right now? Hey, hug them and say, let's fight fair from now on.